Aidan Burley.
Madam Deputy Speaker, I'd like to start by saying how grateful I am to Her Majesty's Opposition for choosing this debate today. Regional pay is one of those issues which has been swept under the carpet for far too long, and it is about time that it's debated in this House. It's an issue that affects many local businesses in my constituency, and one which has been repeatedly raised with me since becoming an MP by local business leaders. Madam Deputy Speaker, the simple truth is that private sector firms have to compete with public sector employers, who in many parts of the country currently offer a comparative premium on salaries, yet alone better pensions and other benefits such as job security. This means that competition is distorted and the private sector is stifled because it can't afford to employ new people or employ the best local people. There is no way around the fact that private sector pay is, on the whole, set locally, and public sector pay is usually set nationally. And a simple fact of modern life is that public and private sector organisations compete for employees in different markets across the UK. The opposition and their union supporters are quick to paint regional pay as an attack on the public sector or as a race to the bottom. However, that is offensive to the millions of people who work in low-paid private sector jobs. This is not a race to the bottom, it is a race to reality, the reality of what people are paid in the real world. And members opposite who are chuntering from a sedentary position should remember this. Without a flourishing private sector in all parts of our country, there could be no public sector jobs, well paid or otherwise, because without the private sector, there could be no public sector. I'll give way in a second. So I say this to them tonight. Anyone who cares about the public sector should also care about creating the right environment for the private sector, and that is why tonight's debate is so important. I give way.
I'm grateful to the honourable gentleman. He and I are both from the West Midlands. Could he answer the simple question, does he want to bring public service pay down in our region? If so, by how much?
Grateful for his intervention, and what I would say to the honourable gentleman is what I want the private sector to flourish in the West Midlands. And one of the astonishing facts I've learned since being an MP is that from 1997 to 2007, the number of jobs in the private sector in the whole of the West Midlands region went down. So during the boom years of his government, private sector employment has gone down, and I don't want to crowd out private sector growth in the West Midlands, and this is why this debate about regional pay is so important. Madam Deputy Speaker, I read an amazing article on Con Home, which I totally disagreed with, which said, and I quote, "Many Tory MPs with small majorities need to keep as many public sector workers on side as possible in order to keep their seats at the next election." And that, quote, "For this reason, expect Lib Dems and low-majority Tory MPs to have grave concerns about any regional pay proposals and expect the plans to be significantly changed or dropped altogether." Well, as a low-majority Tory MP, I believe this House is at its best when it is at its boldest. And I think it would be sad to think that everything that we do has to be driven by a narrow regard for our own majorities and saving our own skin and seat. And frankly, the reading out of the number of state workers in each of our constituencies by the Shadow Chief Secretary of the Treasury says it all about Labour's approach. Stuff their mouths with gold and buy votes. That is the approach of the Labour Party, and she did it tonight. Madam Deputy Speaker, we must do what is right for this country, and what is right for the country is for the government to do everything it can to enable the private sector to flourish so that it can pay the taxes that fund the vital public services that all of our constituents rely on, not just fund the pay of the public sector workers who happen to live in our constituencies. I give way to the honourable gentleman.
Thank the honourable member for me. Thanks to the honourable member for giving way. I mean, what advice would he give to the honourable member for Hexham, who has a substantial Conservative majority, who actually has said on the record there is no economic case for regional pay?
Yeah. We'll be hearing from the honourable member from Hexham in due course, and I will let him make his own argument. But in the very short time left that I have available, I want to focus on the principle behind this debate, which is that whether there are different costs of living in different parts of this country, and if so, whether this should be reflected in state pay. The simple answer to both of these questions is yes. Someone commented after that Con Home article saying perhaps an experiment over a 2-year period to prove regional salaries is such a great idea should begin with MPs and their staff. No doubt they will jump at the chance to lead by example. Well, I propose to do exactly that, because I have here the IPSA bandings for accommodation expenditure, the amount of money that can be claimed by all of us to live in our constituency. And guess what? They vary by constituency. As the MP for Cannock Chase, I can claim £10,950 a year to pay my rent and bills, if I claimed expenses for living locally, which I don't. The member for Cambridge, however, can claim £15,150, nearly 50% more than I can claim. The members for North Somerset and North West Hampshire can claim £13,750, but the member for North Swindon just £12,350. So there you have it, regional variation in terms of what MPs can claim to live based on the cost of living in their area. If it is good enough for MPs, why shouldn't it be reflected in the pay packet of other public sector workers? And let's look at employing our own staff. If I employ a senior caseworker in the London area, I have to pay him £23,000 to £31,000. If I employ him in the constituency, I only have to pay him £19,000 to £28,000. A senior parliamentary assistant can be paid up to £42,000 in London, but can start on just £30,000 in the constituency. So the answer to the blogger is that MPs and their staff are already subject to regional variations in pay and allowances, and are living proof of the established principle of regional pay born out of different regional costs of living. Put it the other way round. If the opposition truly believe in national pay bargaining and public sector salaries being set nationally, will they intervene on me now to say that my staff in London should have their salaries reduced to match those of my staff in Cannock? Or should I be able to claim as much to live in a house in Cannock as to live in a house in Cambridge? Of course not. Today's debate is about whether public sector pay should be relative to private sector wages, and the simple truth is that it must. The Shadow Chief Secretary to the Treasury has said that regional pay, and I quote, will be costly to the public purse and exacerbate regional inequalities. On the contrary, Madam Deputy Speaker, crowding out the private sector in the regions of our country is what will exacerbate regional inequalities, and setting a higher than locally appropriate wage bill means public sector money is not used as effectively as it could be within local areas. I noticed in my intervention she didn't reply to my quote, so I will repeat it for her now. As Unison have said in their location-based pay differentiation policy paper of September 2011, and I quote, location-based pay systems offer increased flexibility and systematic approach to addressing recruitment and retention issues at a local level. We on this side agree with Unison in that analysis. It will be interested to hear if any of the members opposite also support Unison in their analysis, many of whom no doubt will be taking donations from Unison to their constituency Labour parties. The government is right to look at more local market-facing pay and to end the anomaly of national pay bargaining, which is...
Order.